Hi, I'm Dave Prouse, here with the tech question of the day for February 8th, 2017. And this is on the topic of email connectivity and security. A user requires a secure email connection using port 995 for incoming mail and port 465 for outgoing mail. Currently, the user cannot send or receive email, and all tests fail. Examine what you see here and answer the following questions. 1. Why can't the user receive email? And 2. What should you do to check why the user can't send email? And I'll give you a moment to pause the video now before I come back with the answer. Okay, so to fix the incoming mail problem, the account type setting should be changed from IMAP to POP3. So we've got to change this guy here, and that is because the user is required to use port 995, as we mentioned, which is a commonly used secure port for POP3. So we got to change the port here. And most likely, the mail server will have to be changed as well. If you're doing a secure connection, you're going to be doing it to a secure server. When you see a name like mail, that usually means a default server, regular mail. But if you're making a secure connection, you'll often do it to a secure server. And so, for example, it might be called secure. And so different mail server altogether from the regular one. So you'd most likely have to check your network documentation and check the names and check the ports and the protocols to be used. And so then we would have to go to more settings down here. Click that. That brings up the internet email settings and go to advanced. And we see that by default, we have the default port numbers. And we want to change that. So we don't want 110. We want 995 because that's what has been assigned. That's what is required of us. And that's the secure port. And it uses SSL. So we modify that. And at that point, we should be able to receive mail, as long as our username and password are correct. Of course, we see here only a couple asterisks. Make sure there's a powerful password, complex password that meets the requirements of that email server and the domain that that email server is a member of. So that's the first part. And by the way, secure email connections are very common, very important. I deal with some mid-sized and smaller companies, and quite often, if a company has, say, less than 25 users, I'll recommend that they just put everything on the cloud and, not deal with administering an email server. Let somebody like Amazon or Rackspace or somebody else deal with it and, back up the email server and deal with all that stuff, instead of having a network admin on site, which you'd pretty much need. If you only have 25 users, that may or may not be necessary, depending on the company's needs. So I will often recommend offloading all that stuff to the cloud and pay that monthly fee for all the users. Now, when that's the case, again, you'll most likely be connecting with SSL, making a secure connection to their mail server. But a lot of these guys will recommend IMAP over POP for a couple reasons. One, for functionality, and two, for additional security. So keep that in mind as well. But whatever you connect as, make sure you're connecting to the right server name and using the right port. And if you do have to use IMAP, quite often that'll use port 993 if it's secure, 143 if it's unsecure, but 993 if you're using a secure connection. So the second part of the question was about the outgoing mail, sending mail. And to address the outgoing mail problem, we should once again check the server name. And, quite often it'll be the same server. If you're dealing with somebody like Rackspace, they'll have one server to rule them all, so to speak. One server for all secure connections, POP3, IMAP, and SMTP. And then another server for all the insecure connections, or the regular connections, if you want to call it that. But the same server for all these secure connections for SMTP, for POP3, for IMAP. And so we changed that name to secure. And then we'd have to change, again, the port. So we go back to more settings, advanced. And 25 is the default port for SMTP, or one of the default ports. But we would modify that, and quite often companies will use 465. So we've got our ports here. And, you want to check other security also. You want to make sure that you have your SSL connection. You want to make sure that everything is set up properly. All the settings here. If your outgoing SMTP server requires authentication, or SPA, you've got to set that. You've got to have the ports correct. You might have to check this server requires an encrypted connection. And when you do that, it actually changes this port automatically. If you see that, I just changed it from 110 to 995 just by check marking this. If you have another email client, just make sure you're using the right ports. Then OK it, and then the tests should go through. We've changed the mail server names, we've changed the account type, and we've changed the ports. So the tests should go through, and then we should be good to go at that point. So those are the answers for today, for February 8th. For the question of the day. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me at my website, www.davidlprouse.com.